Hold on this. All right, well, this way we can at least have it. So we may as well do this formally. So why don't you give us your song and dance, who you are, where you're from, etc.
You're lucky I didn't get much sleep, or I'd actually get up and try to dance for you. So I am Katie Wubben. I'm from Lake Mills, Iowa. So it's a pretty small town, very rural, about 2,200 people. And I started my firstborn business. I like to say I'm a serial entrepreneur. Started the first one when I was 18, straight out of high school. And that entailed screen print and kind of morphed into, well, it started out with vinyl, cut vinyl graphics, then went into the heat pressed vinyl and stuff like that. Then got into screen printing, then got into embroidery and just keep adding here and there little bits by bits. That business took me into places everywhere from brick and mortar in our little town to pop up at county fairs, making shirts on site, making decals on site, made to order, which was really fun. Helped me pay some stuff off at a faster pace. Took probably 5 years of my younger years that, I didn't enjoy any bit of my summer other than working, but it was fun. And then I also ran like some craft shows during the fall and winter, so stuff like that. And then also did seasonal pop-up stores, a couple different malls, things like that. So I've been everywhere from one woman shop to employed a small staff, and then back to one woman shop now. And then in 2016, I think it was 2016, I launched Trouble Me Not Embroidery and sell the Melco Bravo machines, and learned through that process that I really, really enjoy doing training sessions. So that's kind of my focus now, is more so not just with Melco, but kind of across the board with all embroidery. And it's fun because I get into those scenarios where people are walking that walk that I walked at 18, and I get to kind of guide them towards, better decisions away from some of the ones I made that didn't necessarily pan out, or make sure that they understand, like when they're getting into, something new, kind of help manage their expectations of the process maybe. And I really love being that resource and having a front row seat to the brand new businesses starting up, and kind of get to do a little hand holding with them along their way. And that's why Trouble Me Not is named what it is I like to take the trouble out of, other people's ventures. So that's where I'm at now.
All right. Well, I know you and I met at the DAC shows, and we've
Yep.
been doing those for quite a few years. I'm not sure when you jumped in and when I jumped in comparison to one another, but I think I've been doing them for about 8 to 10 years. I've kind of lost track.
It's been longer than that, Charlie.
Has it?
Yeah.
Probably has. You know,
I, do you want me
I,
to say how long? Because I know, like, I
do
took some of
you?
your classes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I took some of your classes probably in 2008, 2007, 8, or 9, because
Okay.
that's when I got into screen printing, and I was doing a lot of things wrong, and I was self-taught, and I had a 300-piece order washout on the first wash. In a town of 2,200 people, you can imagine how devastating that was to my soul, to my business, to the community. And so at that point, I sat literally under my desk and cried, and I said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I replaced a piece of equipment that caused the fail. And then I said, I either need to learn how to do this right, or I need to walk away and stop trying, because I don't like doing things this bad. So
Well,
at that
yeah.
point I came and I did your classes. I took as many, advice. I took my worst work to the show and I presented it to you, and I said, what I do wrong. And you basically humbly said everything. We talked about artwork and off contact, and I said, what's that? And how do I set it on my old Harco? And you told me. And then I built on that. And so yeah, I mean, that was definitely in that pre 2010 point
Wow.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay. There comes that point where you lose track of time. I
Right.
lost track of time a long time ago. And
Yeah.
so things that don't feel like they were that long ago really are. I know July 1st will be my 48th year in the industry, which kind of freaks me out because it's like really 48 years and this is as far as I can go is playing around with screen prints. Okay, not that it's a bad thing, but
No,
trying to think back, it's like, wow, 48 years ago, really? Okay. I really have to admit, I don't know when I started speaking at the DAC shows. I know when I started speaking at other shows. The first time I spoke was 1980, but that was at a technical symposium. But I started speaking at the Impression shows, or they call it Impressions Expo now, but it was the ISS show back in the early 80s.
okay,
Uh, and did I actually started their workshop program in May of '86, and I've been doing that ever since. Um, but I remember with Scott, uh, because he was involved with the imprinted sportswear shows, and then he started his own deal, which kind of did it quietly, and no one really knew much about it when he first started the DAC shows. And I got a call from him once saying, "Hey, would you be interested in speaking?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm game for all of that. I love getting in front of a crowd and giving them my song and dance, so to speak."
right,
Uh, and somewhere along the line, I remember because of the way he had the show set up, which was Friday, Saturday, uh, and always in a hotel that was attached to a convention center. I said, Friday night comes and you do your party, which is great. I think it's one of those fun things. And everybody that's there is there, period. Why not do a night session?
right.
And so I did the first night session from six, theoretically from 6 to 9 on, I think I did it on special effects, where we did dips and sprays. Um, that went on till midnight.
Yeah,
And it was like, okay, we got to stop, man. This is way out of hand. Um, but
yeah,
you can bring beer and wine if you want because we're after hours.
right.
And so some did, which was really good. And I know you've done probably more night sessions than I have.
I've done a lot of them, yeah. And I do feel like you have to go in with that open mind of 9 o'clock comes and you're going to still be in the room because there's not another teacher coming in after you to kick you out. And so, and it is easy when you enjoy teaching, you enjoy the people that you're in company with. It's easy to get stuck and not really pay attention to the time and just let it roll.
Yeah. No, I think the night sessions are so much more fun than day ones because you don't have the pressure of anybody waiting for the room. And since it's after hours, you can do whatever you want for the most part. And so I know Dane did one where someone brought a 6 pack and somebody in his workshop got bent out of shape because he had a beer. And it's like, really? Get a life. I mean, come on. He had a beer. I think he's old enough.
Right. Well, and as long as people aren't affected, I mean, I don't think I would want somebody to be, drunk during a seminar. That could be distracting. But
Yeah,
a beer does, I
I
mean,
certainly
we,
understand somebody not coming with a bottle of alcohol and downing it, but
right.
having a
But they're
beer
also
while
there
you're
to
working
learn.
and chatting and kind of getting
Yeah.
things going, who cares?
Right.
Bring wine,
Yep.
bring beer. Can't smoke pot, but you can go and take a break and do it. I don't care. As long
Social
as it's legal in
lubrication.
that state. So, and Colorado certainly has been known for its legal side anyway.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, working with Scott's been fun. So, question for you on the new people that are now involved. What do you think?
So I gotta hand it to them. They scheduled me for the long session instead of my night shift. This time around, I did the morning, Thursday morning, which I was like, oh my gosh, this is horribly bad. This is not good on so many levels. This is not going to go well because, from my perspective, a lot of the people that come to that, especially the basics class, they're not full time. They're hobbyists wanting to level up, or they're people that are just starting out. They might hold other jobs, or they're people like I was when I was 18, 19, running my own shop where when they're gone, they have to either figure out how to manage their store while they're gone, or they have to just shut it down. And that comes at an expense. And I thought, there's no way they're going to pull these people for an extra day Now they have additional hotel expenses. They've got additional time away from their business, their families. This is not going to fly. But you know what? They filled the room.
Yep.
I had 30 people, I think, at every single one. And I was so impressed by that. So not only did they, they set the goal, but then they met it. So that was really impressive. I think they're doing a good job at catering and bringing in kind of some new people to the crowd. I think there needs to be a level of one of the hiccups that I found is I'm not sure if it was on a marketing level or on it's just what came and this is what happened. But we had a lot of people come in and just wiped us out a 60 weight thread on the first day in 2 hours. And I'm like, why are we selling so much 60 weight thread? It's people winding their own bobbins. And I'm like, why would you do that? We sell pre-wound bobbins and there's so many good reasons. Let me share with you why, you wouldn't wind your own. And they're like, oh no, it's for my quilting machine. Oh, okay. We have not had quilters attending before, to my knowledge. So knowing that helps me know, like, okay, now what kind of products, what kind of teachings, what kind of everythings do we do? So that caught me off guard. And I don't know if that was intentional to bring in the quilters or if it just happened. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I've been doing the workshop the day before the show forever. And depending on the topic, you could fill the room or you could be rather on the sparse side. I think this year my topic was a little over the head. I love doing the show. I call it my farmers and ranchers show because that's what you have, farmers and
Yep.
ranchers, and it's all predominantly driving traffic. And these are all mom and pop shops. Not
Yep.
that we don't get the occasional big shop, but in
Yeah, there
general,
are,
that's
but
not who they cater
I
to.
agree. Yeah.
And so uh, when you take, in my case, when I take a topic that's a little too advanced, it just doesn't go over. So I
Right.
think for next year, I'm going back to a very basic one. Seems that we're getting a decent amount more people coming into the industry again. And it's been kind of a weird year anyway. I'll chat with you about that. But I noticed I was online the other day. One of the things with the new guys, with TJ and with Nick, um, they're definitely doing a lot more marketing.
Yes.
Where much as I enjoyed working with Scott, marketing was definitely not his forte. Um, he was definitely going after the exhibitors, but he really wasn't pushing hard on getting attendees, and which is kind of interesting. Where they are pushing both ends of it, they're pushing the attendees and the exhibitors,
Which is what
but
needs to happen.
and it does. But I noticed that for next year they're going to do the Chicago show in Schaumburg as
Yeah.
opposed to Tinley Park. And
Yep.
to be honest with you, I'm thrilled. Tinley Park was horrible this year. I don't know if you had anything sent in, but I had things sent in and I was charged. I ended up with, they were going to charge me for the freight that came in from Vastex. I mean, all of a sudden I'm looking at my credit card and I've got a $2,000 bill on there. It's like, what the hell is this? Well, in the past I'd have shirts sent in and I'd pick them up
Right.
they charge you a dollar, well, 99 cents a pound for everything that comes in.
Hmm.
And it's like, really? 99 cents a pound. And I had several hundred pounds come in.
Right.
And so now it's costing me several $100s. And then they tried to nail me on the freight for my equipment. Well, the thing is, they weren't supposed to touch that equipment. That was coming in from Liberty.
Right.
And so I don't know how they resolved all of that, but it was kind of like, you know what? Much as I enjoyed Tinley Park, now that they've gotten to be the even hotel, bye bye.
Yeah.
I'm
I
done. The
I will
rates
tell
went up
you,
and everything else. And it's like,
I've
really,
never,
why?
yeah, I've never been a terribly high fan of the Even Hotel, primarily because for why we're there, the rooms are not, I want more space, less random stuff in the room. I want a spot to sit down that's not the bed, and not an exercise ball. But I have always found the staff to be nice, and I've enjoyed working with the staff a lot. So I will be sad to not necessarily have that reason that will take me there, but I'll pop in and say hi anyways. On a business level, I think it was great that they're going for this move. On a personal level, I'm not excited about it because that means everything new to me. So I bring in a truck and trailer. I know what I'm dealing with, for loading docks. I know what I'm dealing with for layout. Going into a new setting, I don't know all those things. So there's a level of me that's like, really, we have to change something. But at the same time, I do. And I think the Minnesota one being relocated is a fabulous change as well. As much as I don't like that either, because on the personal side of it, I want it to be the same. I just want to do what we do. But on a business side, it makes perfect sense because it's going to be an easier spot to fly in or get to, drive to. I think that COVID changed a lot of things. And one of the things is with understaffing and kind of a recalibration of our society, I don't think people are willing to drive from the cities to the show like they used to at the casino. And it's just far enough that it's not a hop and a jump from the shop. They can't just go check things out. The floor is smaller, so it doesn't justify their time away. If the drive is going to take them longer than the actual time there, it doesn't justify it for them. And on the other side, if you fly in and rent a car and drive, it's not cheap. So
No,
I do think
that's
that
what I
change
have.
is going to be phenomenal. Um, but
Well,
I've had too many years where too many things are changing constantly, and I'm like, can we just not? But at the same time, I think it's very wise, very good.
I don't know if you've ever been to the convention center in Schaumburg, but ISS did a show there for a couple of years, and big hotel, nice convention area. Um, I forget which hotel it is. I forget what the affiliation is. Of course, that changes all the time anyway. But certainly, it's in a much more congested area. Um, Easier for people to drive in if they fly in. Certainly, I fly into O'Hare, so for me, Schaumburg is a whole hell of a lot closer than
Right.
Tinley Park. If you're flying into Midway, I don't think it's dramatically different,
It's
but I'm
still a
not
bit of
sure.
I think it's about, I want to say it's 20 minutes out. So it's not, I mean,
Yeah, which is
inconvenience
still
of,
not bad because from O'Hare
right,
to Tinley Park is a good hour drive.
right. Yeah, I did that once and yeah, and I don't fly a lot, so for me that was really overwhelming coming from a puddle jumper into O'Hare.
Yeah,
That
well,
was pretty intense.
yeah, O'Hare isn't my favorite airport, and getting out of that area is just one big pain in the ass, to be honest with you.
It is.
Where are they doing the Minnesota show? I missed that. I don't know why.
I think it's going to be now. I saw it. I'm trying to remember now. It's going to be relocated back into the cities. I don't remember if it was. I'd have to look to be certain,
Yeah, I have to pull it up.
but
I
it's
mean, I
not going to be
love,
at the casino. It's not going to be. It'll be closer to the home base for people flying stuff in and freighting in. I think it's a very good business decision.
but
Now on the personal side, it's always fun going to the casino. It's always fun hanging out there.
right.
It's a fun environment, but
Yeah, I mean, I love the casino only because people would go. I could park the car on Wednesday and not have to look at it until Saturday.
right. Yep.
And so if you don't want to gamble, that's fine. There's always a band playing in the
Yep.
bar area. So it'll be interesting to see how these other situations play themselves out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're doing anything in Kansas City that's different. I think they're probably leaving that one alone
I
from
think
what it
that one
said.
is being left alone. Yeah. I want to say.
I mean, I have to admit, I love that one only because I can fly in, they pick you up at the airport,
Right.
don't have to drive. Be nice if they had a decent restaurant besides just the burger joint.
Yeah. I agree with
One
that.
night of it is okay. Every night of it is not so much fun.
Right.
Um, but nevertheless, there are some other places around the corner that you can walk to.
Yeah. Well, and that's, again, I drive in and so there you go, Charlie. Always keep in mind, I've got extra seats in the truck.
I will keep that in mind. But I know with Schaumburg, there's a ton of places nearby,
Yeah.
and I'm sure if we're anywhere near downtown Minneapolis, it should be no
Plenty
issue
of
at all.
options.
I'm just wondering how, the thing about each of the places we went to, parking was never an issue.
Right.
Somehow when you get closer to the city, it becomes that much more of an issue, and I'm just wondering
Right.
how that's going to play out.
Well,
But
and I don't know if this is something that people generally think about. Especially I think Scott, yes, because he has the experience of these things, but one of the things that I've been doing now, especially on my training runs too, is I preview the area I'm going to on a level of what kind of environment is it? I got into a situation one time where I was at a show, I didn't think anything of it. The hotel was nice, it didn't seem sketchy at all or anything. And on the last day of the show, I went out to get the truck hooked up to the trailer, and lo and behold, my whole tailgate is gone. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And I go up to the front desk of the hotel, and they're like, oh, yep, just another day. That's the third one today. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And then when the cop came to do the theft report, he was telling me about the environment I was in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Like, I'm okay with being pretty much anywhere, but I want to go in knowing where I'm at. And
yeah,
so I felt very blindsided by I'm in a crap hole. I'm in a decent little spot surrounded by crap, and crap being lots of crime, lots of theft, lots of drugs, and all kinds of bad. And I'm like, again, I make different choices based on that. I'm not going to go outside by myself at one
yeah,
in the morning if I know I'm surrounded by a bunch of crime and a bunch of stuff. Um, and so I felt very like I had been in a dangerous situation without even realizing that I was. And I think sometimes on the level of planning a show, security is huge. Scott always has done a great job with security. And that's one thing that I kind of got to take for granted, because not every show does it the same. And I think that's really important to have good security, not just inside the floor space. Because as a vendor, I've got lots of equipment, lots of stuff that people could mess with or whatever. But then also, what is your truck and trailer? And I found out that where I was in that situation, a week before that show, a truck just like mine had been lifted completely. It's gone. It's parted out before you can blink an eye. And I'm like, what would I do when I'm 14 hours away from home without a truck to pull my trailer back home? I would have had to rent a truck and drive 14 hours. I mean, that's so impractical. I probably would have bought a piece of crap and drove up home and sold it when I got home and dealt with it later, because I don't know what I would have done. But going in
yeah,
not knowing those things, and that's what I was talking about. Like, I know what Tinley Park is, I know what the environment is, I know how the hotel handles things, because security cameras are great, but they only do their job if they're not covered by branches.
yeah,
And not every hotel takes it the same level. So those are things I would encourage either the ownership to do, or each vendor to just take it upon themselves to know what kind of an environment am I going into. Should I would have been better off to actually rent a car that wasn't a hot, because it turns out F-350s and the tailgates with the step and the camera are the hottest commodity in that particular place. And I'm like, I never would have dreamt of it. I'd never heard of this.
mm,
People in rural Iowa don't steal people's tailgates. Like, what?
you're right. Um, in Schaumburg, you don't have to worry about trees. I don't think you're going to see that many of them.
Right.
But it is a very business area. There's a mall, there are bunches of strip malls, there's a major mall. Um, Environmentally, as far as crime and stuff, it's a city. Uh, you get unlucky, but I mean,
Right.
it's not a crime infested area. Uh,
Right. And that's the difference, I think, is when you're seeing a lot of there's parts of Kansas City I've gotten myself into that I go, I'm not doing that again.
yeah, well,
Just because
Kansas City, where we used to go to, that was a nasty area. Uh, Not the one near the airport, but
I
the
think I was
previous
there
one.
once. Yeah.
It was not really the place to be.
Actually, I think that was the first year I went there.
Okay.
I want to say, yeah, which was also the first show that I had done as a vendor. So didn't know what I
Uh,
didn't know.
So, and you're going to be doing the Impressions Expos now,
I'm going to be teaching classes at the, let's see, it's in October this year,
right? The Fort Worth show.
down in Texas. Yep. So I'm for sure doing that. We are negotiating and I'm thinking about the other ones. I haven't committed or not committed yet. I very much want to. I just need to make it work with scheduling and with, all the things, all the bits and bops.
Well, the Fort Worth show is kind of an interesting show. I love Fort Worth. I think it's an old cowboy town, and which is kind of nice. And everybody, you walk the streets, you bump into all the people from the show constantly. Great restaurants, especially if you're into steaks. It's steakhouse to steakhouse to steakhouse to steakhouse. And it's just a matter of which one do you want to go to because they're all really good.
Sure.
Um, they draw a good crowd. Uh, Even during the pandemic, it was always pretty substantial. Um, Certainly, much bigger than Chicago.
Hmm. Do
Just to
you
give you
find
an,
that people come from afar or is it a lot of locals and it's just in a very heavily populated area?
so the Fort Worth show will draw from Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. Um, that's pretty much it. Those
Okay.
three states, and it's all drive-in for the most part.
Right.
Um, none of those areas are too far away. And again, it's again, that's a rancher's show.
Yep.
Finding people who live on ranches and stuff, not unusual.
Right.
Uh, Matter of fact, Mark Granby, who owns GSG, has a ranch, etc. Um, it's a very consistent show and should do very well this year. The biggest of the shows is still January, which is from the screen print side has become the best screen print show in the world. And that one draws like 20 some odd thousand people. Um, Heavy amount of embroidery, screen print. Of course, DTF is everywhere right now.
Right.
Um, the difficulty with the big show is just the fact that it's so big that getting through it is tough. And as if you're going to, I don't know if you're planning on exhibiting there or not, but um, I find honestly, for a lot of us who are speakers, even if you have something to sell, um, that show is going to be tough to sell in. Out of your booth, you can actually do a better job just by being up in front of an audience and letting them know who you are, where you are, and how to get in touch with you, as opposed to uh, taking space. Only because space, number one, is from what I understand, brutally expensive, and unless you had signed up right after the previous show, you're going to be back in the rotunda area.
Right.
And the problem with that is not that people won't get there, but a lot of them won't.
Right.
Okay, the main floor is really where they're going to be.
Right. I think, one of the things that I've learned, again, when I started out at 18, I would take anything on head on. That whole, like, you can do anything. I took that way too seriously. And I would try to do everything and not do one piece of it very well, but do a lot of it. And so one of the things that I've tried to do, especially since COVID, I've kind of recalibrated to a point of I'm much happier, I'm much less stressed. And part of that is because I became very selective about what is worth my time to deal with, what is worth my time to take on. And one of the things that I'm kind of in the back of my mind, leaving room in my bucket, so to speak, I used to always have an overflowing bucket, always too much going on. And then when something happens that you can't control, it drops a rock in your bucket and splashes out, and you can't do anything about it. You just have to go into survival mode and keep paddling. So now I'm trying to operate with a, half full bucket so that there's always room for those rocks that drop in and fill it up quick and let it dissipate while still feeling like I can function without being in total survival mode. So for this year, I definitely want to just focus on that teaching aspect because that's my strongest place. It's the part I love the most. And it's the part that comes with the least amount of complications, because when I have a booth, I have to have staff, I have to drive in with a trailer, I have to, do the setup and tear down, which nearly kills my body. And it takes away from the ability to have those more organic conversations outside of teaching. It's like if I'm in my booth, I got to be moving from person to person, and I can't have as many organic conversations. So that's kind of where my focus is going to be for right now. And I think it'll be the least stressful, most productive way to move through taking on that new show.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me when you sign your contract and it says, oh, and you can't promote yourself, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, right. But you do anyway, and you should.
If you're a personable person and you have
Yeah,
something to offer, people are going to ask you for that
right.
information. Mm-hmm.
You just have to be discreet about it. I mean, to
Right.
get up there and say, buy my stuff,
Right.
that
Right.
doesn't
So
that doesn't
here's the
really
link
fly
to
very
purchase
well.
this. Right.
Um,
That was a hard thing for me. That first couple of years that I was teaching with Dax, I didn't personally sell stuff, so the supplies I was talking about, I would start dropping business names, and I would always tell them, the only reason I'm doing this is because I've been in your shoes and going, what is she talking about? What is that product? And I need that, but where do I get it? So I would always say, here's 3 options where you can source this product from. Here's the different names. If you need further help from that, get a hold of me. Now that I sell supplies, I still feel like it's a weird walk, because it is so important to connect the dots, because if you don't, it's useless for them. They have
I
to know where
agree.
to get the products. So but I always try to do it. And I always tell them, I'm not selling to you right now. I'm connecting dots. So, if you want the name or part number from a different vendor, I'll give you 4, so just making sure you know where to get the stuff we're talking about so you can have the success in your shop you need.
Yeah, were you friendly with or knew Frank Goronsky?
I'm not sure who that is.
So Frank was one of the people who was teaching embroidery at the ISS shows
Okay.
for years and years, and still has a consulting business and an embroidery school or embroidery education, whatever. Not a school, but anyway.
Right.
Um, he would always read through the paperwork that the ISS show would send us, and he would always get bent out of shape because of the way it read. And it's like, Frank, just sign the damn thing and forget about it. Just go out there and do your thing and don't worry about it. But it says that we could, it's like he got to the point where they finally said, you know what? You're out of here.
It's too complicated.
Well, he was questioning everything about it. It's like, you know what? People from stalls go out, and of course they're pushing stalls.
Right.
You want your company promoted? Good. Wear a shirt that has your company name on it.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. There's lots of ways to make sure that people know who you are and what you're doing without saying it.
yeah, I
And if
mean,
you're
if you want an infomercial, you go to the Graph Expo. They do
right,
infomercials, and that's why
right,
they don't charge for seminars,
right.
because everyone, when they first started that show, I got a call saying, "Hey, would you be interested in speaking?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'd be happy to." And I said, "Well, in order to speak, you have to take a booth." And it's like, what the hell am I going to do with a booth? Oh, well, if you can't take a booth, then you can't speak. They are totally infomercials.
Okay.
And so, anyone who goes, not that the information is bad, but it's absolutely slanted in one direction.
Right.
And that's yours. So whatever it is that you're selling, that's what the
Right.
whole song and
Yeah.
dance is about, which I'm totally opposed to be honest with
Yeah.
you. I think if you're going to do it, call it an infomercial, don't call it a seminar.
Right. I agree, because it helps manage expectations on what people, go in kind of expecting to come out with. And I think one of the things I can't say for certain, but I feel pretty strongly that Eric Campbell and I are the same in this, where we try to maximize every second of the seminar or workshop that we're doing to make sure that we give them 150% of what we can. And sometimes I almost feel like it can be overwhelming. So to scale back and leave a little bit of that room. And I do think, you know, again, going back to not being in a booth, it gives me room to be of value outside of the workshop space and outside of the seminar space too, where I can maximize on those opportunities with each person on an
Yep.
individual level and not feel like I have to cram 150% into that space, because that can get overwhelming.
No, I agree. You know, I find you'll do more selling of your product after your seminar, and actually even in the evening. You know, if you've got somebody who's really hot to trot, so to speak, just going out to dinner with them is probably
Right.
the best thing to do. And I mean, I just kind of hang out in my room, and it is what it is. I'll hit the show floor because you certainly should see the show floor and see who's there and what's going on. But you know, as speakers, I think you have the best opportunity during your classroom, and even letting people know, look, when the seminar is over and you have questions, specific ones about product, see me afterwards.
Right.
You know, and at that
Yeah.
point, you're quote unquote, you're off the mic. And
Right.
so you can give them your straightforward opinion about what you
Right.
think is best, you know, which direction you would go in. And to me, uh, they're there to learn, they're there to pick up information, they're there to save themselves some aggravation. And I think it's our job to make it easy for them or easier for them to get ahead of the game.
Right.
And so, you know, teaching them techniques and procedures, absolutely. Uh, you know, talking about products, I always offer more than one, or I offer the one that I've used. You know,
Right.
so
That's
if
my
I've made
ticket right
screens,
there. Yep.
you know, my screens were made using these products. Bum, 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 bum.
Yep.
Here it is. Um, you know, obviously there's plenty of product on the market. There's no shortage
Right.
from anybody's side right now.
No.
And there's a lot of great product out there. It's just a matter of how well, um, how easy is it going to be for them to, number one, get it and to make use of it. But
Right.
we'll see. But you know, I
Yeah.
think you'll enjoy Texas. I don't know if you've spent any time down in Fort Worth, but
I have. Yep.
you know, it's definitely a fun town
Yeah, it is.
versus um, you know, the thing about uh, Long Beach, which they've cleaned up. I mean, I've been doing that show since before there was a convention center there, and it's definitely changed a huge amount. It used to be one of those areas where it was all longshoremen bars and stuff, and you definitely didn't want to go roaming around too much at
Right.
night,
Right.
um, or drift into the wrong place, which we did. I should really go back and touch up a couple of things in my book about a couple of experiences there. But in any event, uh, that show is just insane. Um, the number of people that show up, especially overseas people, and the opportunities there are great, but difficult. I mean, you almost have to bang your way through. Um, what was it? 2 years ago, I had an automatic put into my room. And normally in California, when I do a workshop, I'll get like 60, 70 people in a workshop. I did two workshops, the basic one, which had 90 people in it. And then my advanced one had 129 people. And it was like, what the hell do you do with 129 people? Uh, Fortunately, I had an automatic. And so, if nothing else, they didn't all get the print, but they all got a shirt to take home if they
Right.
wanted it. Last year wasn't quite as strong. I think I must have had, I don't know, about 70 and 90 people. Numbers that are just not um, easily comprehended. You know, when you start getting over 100 people in a room,
Right.
it starts to get pretty crazy. I don't know how many you've handled, but
60 for sure. But it depends on the content and how you manage it, I think, a lot too. And if you're trying to do any hands-on stuff, that's too many. Um,
well, I found, and I do hands-on on all of them, but I found that the ones that really want to do the hands-on are ones that have never done it.
right.
Those that have done it are content to watch And
They just need to know what they're doing wrong and they understand how to fix it. Whereas if they've never done it, they really
yeah.
don't know how it feels, how it's gonna, what this and that.
So you're doing seminars, you're not doing workshops for the Impressions
I have to
Expo.
remember how the verbiage works. So we're getting a little clever on how this works. I'm doing one long session that's going to be on embroidery basics. And I'm really excited about it because we're going to have like breakout sessions. So they will be as hands-on as you can be without an embroidery machine in the room. So we'll cover hooping, like backing choices. So I'll actually have little stations set up that they can go through and they might look at the artwork, how it's going to sew out and the fabric they're going to sew it on, as well as backing choices. And then they're going to make the backing choice and hoop it. And, you know, I'll evaluate or grade them based on, I expect this to do this or this, you know, or we might have samples sewn out that they look at and they're troubleshooting and they say, okay, what went wrong here? Was it hooping? Was it backing? Was it digitizing? You know, what of the things went wrong, or how many of the things went wrong? Was it needle choice or whatever? Because that's the hard part. And it's just like screen printing. When things go wrong, you might have 10 different things that could have made that thing go wrong.
Yeah,
So building that confidence in how to diagnose the problem to me is huge. So we're going to spend a lot of time on that. We'll build a great foundation of here's what you should do, when and why. And then also, you know, bring that element of let's actually troubleshoot some things that have gone wrong here. And I'll have, you know, the bad samples on their stations, and then we'll break out into those sessions. So I'm pretty excited about that element. We haven't done that to that level in any of the classes I've taught, other than individual trainings. So to me, it's as close as you can get to an individual on-site training with me, but in a group setting. And we'll talk about, you know, everything from
well, you bet.
backing, hooping on up to everything else, all the things. So that's the one. And then the other one will be basically a back-to-back, like 2 sessions back to back that'll be offered as one class, or I don't know the terminology that they're using, but basically that one's going to cover pricing, but a much deeper level of not just pricing, because people are always like, well, what should I charge per stitch or per left chest?
Right.
It's not that simple. And so I'm going to really do a deep dive into how to set pricing on your actual business data. So bring your tax return, bring your QuickBooks, whatever. Let's build out your price based on your actual shop rate that it should be. And then on top of that, evaluate, you know, what to look for both online or in store or with your customers, however you sell, how to evaluate, am I at the right price? Could I get more? Should I be bringing it down? How to offer sales, how to use statistics and data to evaluate all those things. And then, you know, how to set your pricing up so that it can propel you towards your goals instead of just kind of running a stagnant business. So how to maximize your profits, all
Yeah,
those kinds of things. I'm really excited about that one too.
I'm sure. Well, you know, should have a pretty interesting time. Right now, certainly embroidery is still drawing a lot,
Mm-hmm.
probably more than screen print because of all of the wonderful DTF stuff that's out there,
Right.
which everybody is convinced is going to eliminate screen printing. But
Right. Yeah.
that's all right.
Right.
There,
In certain
I think
markets,
the
maybe, but
well, um, you know, when DTG first came out, it was going to eliminate screen printing, and now DTF came out, and it's going to eliminate screen printing. And what it's actually eliminating is DTG. Um, and between them, they maybe make up 5 to 8% of the market. The other 90 some odd percent is all screen print still. So they've got a little ways to go before they can infringe on
right.
everything that has to do with screen print. But
Well, and I
nevertheless,
think on an entry level, I can see that maybe being less intimidating if they don't know what they're doing. You know, and walking that walk of self-taught, it was pretty rough. But
yeah,
if you go in and you learn something as a basics,
you
that's
know,
huge.
um, anytime somebody thinks that they found nirvana,
Right.
it's never been nirvana. You know, there's certainly applications where each discipline is best. DTF definitely has its spot. You know, I'd
Right.
hate to see what happens if you have a 10,000 piece order and you got to do it with DTF.
Right. Yeah. No.
You know, how
It's
how many machines you have to set up and how many people does it require versus screen
right.
print. And we'll see. It'll
Yeah.
be as the numbers increase, the ability to do it with DTF decreases some. But without a doubt, short runs and stuff, hey,
Right.
go for it.
Well, and that's like the conversation of multi-head versus modular or single head, or how many needles do I need? It's totally about what are you actually doing? What kind of work are you producing? Because there's nothing wrong with a one needle machine if all you're doing is names on a left chest all day long for a hospital or something. But if you're getting into, or if you want to get one of these machines that does the dyeing of the thread on its way out,
Well, I
why
was
would
going to
you
say
need more than
the,
one
the
needle?
color reel machine.
Yeah, so
Uh,
there's applications that there's not one right answer. It's what are you doing and how are you going to do it to make sure
So
you're maximizing your profit.
I did a show in Germany. It's got to be 6 years ago, where they introduced a color reel, and I still have samples with me actually, and brought it back to the U.S. And it's a Swiss company that is making the machine. And I just saw that same day tease Pete, who is a friend, was just doing a whole thing on Facebook about he just bought a color reel. I remember showing it to several of the embroiderers that I'm friendly with. And of course, they all had questions about it because they didn't get to see it in action. I did, about how fast can it go. And it was like, yeah, it can go as fast as your machine goes. Does it have any hiccups? It does have some. The idea that you just have a big ball of um, polyester thread, a big white ball of polyester thread, and don't need anything else. That's pretty cool, you
Right.
know. And it does attach. I think at that time it was about $20,000 to uh, put it onto your embroidery machine, and probably not a whole lot different now. Um, so is that going to eliminate the need for somebody to have a 15 needle machine? Because now they can have a single needle that does everything. And it's like,
Right.
really get a clue.
Yeah.
It'll have certain applications that are definitely wonderful. And, you know, transitioning from color to color to color, yep, that's going to be great. But
Right.
will it replace everything? No chance.
No.
Uh, just not going to happen. But again,
Is
you'll
it
hear,
awesome? Yeah.
but of course, those who are selling the machine, oh yeah, you don't need to have all of those heads anymore. You won't have to change 15 threads when you change a job. And it's like, of course not.
Right.
This will do it all. And needless to say, it won't, but it'll
Right.
be interesting
Well,
to see.
it's kind of similar to the whole auto digitizing or auto vector, that quick little sweet button you can click and it just makes your
Yep.
artwork magically appear perfectly. It's like, no, I don't care what kind of money has gone into a software. You're gonna have to have a human element involved to get the quality that you need, unless you're okay with mediocre. And if you are,
But
that's okay. But it just depends on what you're doing again.
yeah, well, now you have AI doing, um, all of the artwork. So you don't have to really be an artist. All you have to do is type into it what you're looking for, and you're going to get a bunch of variations of it. You can modify those. I was talking to Dane because he and I go back a ways, and he said, "Yeah," he said, "I was on the phone punching in the exact same thing as Lon Winters was on the other phone, and we're both on monitor, and we got two totally different results,
Oh yeah.
identical situations." And he said, even when they're all done, you still have to go in and modify them.
Yep.
Not that you couldn't use it as is, but more than likely you're going to have to make some modifications.
Right.
And so the fact that you're not an artist, well, that certainly helps a bit in terms of you getting a little more creative, but you still have to do the separations and you still have to do your modifications. So, yeah, it's not going to eliminate your art department.
Right. I remember one of the people I learned an awful lot about signs and vinyl cut, graphics and things like that. Probably back in like 2005, 2006, I took a lot of trips out to learn from, I think his name is Butch Antone. Anyways, he he was a sign maker with the original, hand painted lettering. And one of the things that I really appreciated that I learned from him was that transition to the vinyl cutters where you could just digitally create your artwork and pop out a sign or letters, to apply to anything. And what he said is it really kind of destroyed the industry for a while because everybody and their brother, no matter how uncreative they were, could now make a sign. And they made a lot of crappy looking signs for a way lower price point and kind of
Sure.
wrecked the industry for a bit, and so he really drove that. And I've always been a creative person. I like to get funky with all the things that I do. I've done some mixed media with screen print and embroidery. And when I got comfortable with embroidery, it kind of blew my mind up because I'm like, wow, I can do literally anything. This is so cool. So, there's that element of as a teacher, as somebody who inspires people in the industry, I really like to always keep that element of even if you can just typeset something basic, do you really want your stuff to be basic or do you want it to stand out and be awesome? And so that's always what I strive for is to create that level of, passion for what people are doing, but also that excitement in the industry to keep it lively instead of just basic aerial or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, change is good. Initially, it kind of startles you, and then you kind of softly move into it and realize, yeah, um, the human element is still a very important part of the whole operation. And
Yep.
so I'm just looking forward to somebody where they have AI that can get up in front of a classroom and teach my stuff.
Well, they probably are working on it. They're
I'm
probably
sure they
actually
are.
having you teach your class without you even knowing it.
Well, the question is, do they have a sense of humor or can they build that in or not?
Right,
Any event,
right. I don't know. I've said some pretty off the wall things that my audience is like, I didn't expect that at all. Like, nope.
yeah,
But
fun
that's what
stuff.
keeps you learning and keeps it, I feel like being a good instructor is partly, can you deliver it in a way that's not dry and stagnant? And I think you're right. There's a lot of personality that goes into it.
Yeah, I
Whether that's
agree.
humor or,
Information is out there. It's presentation that really counts. And,
yep,
just because somebody knows it doesn't mean they know how to convey that information. So
right.
that's where we come in. So I'm looking forward to seeing you down in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Um, if I can help along the way, or if you have any questions that I can answer for you, I'd be happy to.
Awesome.
Um, other than that, I think we're going to call this a day.
Sounds
Um,
good.
I will send you, it'll be on my website in a couple of days. My guy will put it together because I don't know beans about how to do that stuff. I don't, even with the announcements and stuff. So I have a guy in India that I've been working with for a number of years now who's just great at all of this stuff. And so I send it to him and he does whatever he needs to do to put it together. And I'm good with that. So he manages my website and everything else because if I
Nice.
had to do it, nothing would happen.
Oh my
So,
gosh. I've gone through 2 years of labor with getting my training site up and running how I wanted it. And it's finally there. It's finally up. It's finally what I envisioned it to be. Now it's just being fed and growing. So I love that. And that was part of I had to get that done before I was going to take on any new shows because sometimes I start too many things and I don't pass off some of those tasks. Like you said, I mean, it was might have been better off for me to pass off some of that stuff to somebody else. But you have to have at least a vision to tell them this is kind of what I'm shooting for. You can't hit a target if you can't explain it. So it was an
yeah,
evolving thing.
I
But
know. Well, he's the one who put together my book. I mean, I sent him all of the PDFs on it. He did all the arrangements. He's now going to be
nice.
doing my other book, which has nothing to do with um, anything technical. It's all my stupid years in the industry. But um, he keeps bugging me about when you're sending it, when you're sending it. I have to still keep refining a couple of bits and
Right.
pieces. But if you
There's
ever need
something
anyone,
challenging to decide when is it good enough? When is it done?
yeah, you do make that decision eventually. But if you ever need anyone like that, just let me know. He is
Okay.
really good and uh, really inexpensive. Being in India, he doesn't have the overhead that a
Right.
lot of the companies here have to deal with. In any event, thanks so much for being on. I do
Yeah, thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
And look forward to seeing you down in Fort Worth.
Yep, sounds good.
Have a good
All
one now.
right. Yep, you too.